What I like about this school is we get to do fun activities, go to recess and do art.
I like the school because of the teachers and the education that they have here, and I love my friends, and this is like a very important and safe space for me.
I like my school because it teaches lots of math and reading. The school also makes me think that I'm learning much more from my old school because they're going way too fast, and I think this school takes it really slow.
I like to make new friends, and I like to meet new people, and I like math. And I like PE, music, and art. I love math because you can make new numbers, you can put them together, break them apart. You can switch the ways, you can make the whole and a part.
I love my school because there's a lot of classrooms to learn different subjects. The teachers teach in different types of ways. They teach in projects, they teach in objects like visual learning. Sometimes we can do activities to learn more, and sometimes the teachers make jokes so we can understand it as well.
I like the school because the teachers and the people here, my classmates, are really funny, and the teachers start making jokes and like start talking with us like we're like normal friends and all that.
I like my school because the teachers are interactive with the students more, and there's more of a connection with the students and the teachers instead of just the students itself. Teachers, they're just like really helpful anyway. You can always talk to them.
I love this school because they challenge you, they really get you ready for the next level, they help you out a lot, and if you need help, you can just ask the teachers. We need some more schools like this.
We are Ingenium Schools.
The Ingenium Schools Board of Trustees meeting to order at 5:04 p.m. Jennifer, please take the roll.
Catherine Hamilton.
Present.
Madar Ali.
Present.
Wallace Way.
Present.
Aaron Flood.
Present.
Erica Hansen.
Present.
We'll move to item C, adoption of the agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt our agenda tonight?
I move to adopt the agenda. I second.
Please take the roll.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Ali.
Yes.
Way.
Yes.
Flood.
Yes.
Hansen.
Yes.
And we'll move to approval of our previous meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes for January 30th, 2023?
I so move.
I
Second.
Please take the roll.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Ali.
Yes.
Way.
Yes.
Flood.
Yes.
Hansen.
Yes.
We'll move to item 2, oral communications from the public. This is for items that are or are not on the agenda. We have no communications at here or either of any of our sites. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, items for information and discussion, starting with our Ingenium monthly financial report with Marisol Felix from Charter Impact. Welcome, Marisol.
Thank you.
Dad, but it's raining.
Give me 1 second.
Dad, okay, I think the last back has a toy. I think the last back has a toy.
Okay, can you all see the screen?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Wallace. So today we are going to review the financial highlights for the month of January, which is actually the year-to-date January information found in the second interim report. And I think it was provided to the board, but this is the model in which it's provided to the authorizer, and I believe it's in your packet. But the second interim is actually going to be reviewed as we are reviewing the financial highlights for the board to approve today. So overall, as we see, we are in good shape. We see a slight variance to budget, but continue to maintain a positive forecast surplus for most of the parts, apart from Clarion, as we continue to fine-tune the financials in connection to plans associated with one-time funds. We will continue to see a variance in our overall forecasted surplus because of that. Forecasted revenue experienced a slight downward adjustment, and this is really due to P1 numbers and one-time spending plans. Our forecasted expenses continue above budget, and this is relative to one-time funds again. And lastly, cash is steady at the end of January and continues to trend well above the recommended 15% reserve. And now we see that under compliance, we have a really busy month coming up. For the most part, we see that we have second interim. We also have the ESA reporting due on March 1st, along with MOE reporting to SELPA on March 24th, and the federal stimulus reporting due on March 28th. And this concludes the financial presentation. And I'll stop now in case anyone has any questions about the financials or the highlights.
Is the forecast the same as the second interim budget, or is it different?
It is the same as second interim budget.
Okay. So how does it compare with the first interim on a consolidated basis?
In a consolidated basis, a comparison to interim is you'll see a slight change in our overall forecasted surplus, which is not equivalent to first interim. We do see a slight dip. And the dip is really associated with, one, our P1 numbers, and then number two is obviously our spending plans for one-time funds continue to change. So we will continue to see these variances because of the one-time funds.
Okay. And I also have a question about the attendance metrics chart for each school. It seems the red dotted line probably is not accurate. So for example, on page 16 of 64, so if you scroll down to page 16, that's just one example. So on the left side, it seems like the budgeted enrollment, for example, is 147. But if you look at the chart on the right, so both the enrollment and the attendance from the budget was over 200, which don't align with each other. So we want to take a look to say why they do not align.
Absolutely, you are correct. That is an omission.
Yeah, and that's I think for all schools. That's just one example. You may want to take a look.
Thank you.
That's it.
Any other questions for Marisol? Okay, thank you, Marisol.
Thank you so much.
We'll move on to item B, the Ingenium Charter Middle School site update with Dr. Troletti. I was about to say welcome, but instead we'll say thank you for hosting us.
My pleasure. Thank you. Hello. So, do I share it?
Yeah, you want
No. and then just go to share.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, excuse me while I get this up and running. As I put on my broken glasses. Oops.
Chris, can you pin the presentation?
Okay.
You got it. There you go.
I am ready, but now let's make sure that I'm sharing ready. Okay. Now we're ready. Thank you so much for that. So today I want to talk about our roadmap, the Ingenium Charter Middle School's roadmap to increased achievement, and really focus on our 4-month plan. So we came up with our 4-month plan by reviewing our school improvement plan and seeing what activities were needed to be really enacted with great priority to be able to combat or to be able to achieve our 3 biggest areas of concern to help increase things. And we as a school determined that our 3 biggest areas of concern were our low proficiency rates in ELA, our low proficiency rates in math, and our low reclassification rates for our English learners. So the first thing we did was determine from our SIPs, our school improvement plan, what are the priority steps for our English language program and being able to increase the academic achievement. And we identified that we needed to review data to determine students who are closest to moving up an achievement band, which means that they are really close with just a little bit extra push. We hopefully could get them to rise a level in standardized testing as well as our assessments. We would have a tutor to work with identified students during study hall on skill-specific lessons. So the tutor would not be working like on what was being done in the classroom, but really on skill specifics, which we'll get to in a moment, and I'll show you how that was determined. We would identify students' time on Lexia, and we would monitor our identified students, how much time they spend on Lexia. And Chromebooks will be available to take home for anybody on our identified student list who wants to work on Lexia at home. We would be happy to send home these Chromebooks. Additionally, we created a data tracker with our principals across the campuses, and we determined that we will be tracking all this data on that specific tracker. Lastly, PD will focus on instructional strategies such as accessing prior knowledge, intentional student talk, checking for understanding, and how to hand off things to students. The purpose of the tracker is to collect current information, so it's not just looking at things that happened at the second benchmark, but rather it's what's going on every week or every day with these students who we identified as being able to move up a band with appropriate supports. It's also purposes to create awareness and ownership of data, both by teachers as well as by the students. We did find when the students were given their data, such as prior to the NWEA second assessment, when they were aware of their data going into it, there was a lot more ownership and a lot more excitement about actually taking the assessments as the kids were trying to beat their scores. So we want to take this and make this as a weekly thing, have the students really aware of their Lexia and their Dreambox data. We began to initially use the tracker on February 6th. We received input and revisions from our staff on February 13th, and what we're using is currently what the staff all had input on since the 13th. So as you can tell, this is still relatively new, but we are finding it to be helpful. Exit ticket information provided by our RTI teachers are included on the data tracker, as well as formative assessment information, which is provided to us by either the teacher or the tutor, and program information from Dreambox or Lexia, which is provided by the content teacher. The tools and strategies for our ELA students the tools are during school tutoring as well as after school tutoring, Lexia usage, Kinsella's academic vocabulary toolkit, Chromebooks to take home, and the Lexia tracking. The strategies are very targeted PD for our teachers, small group instruction in the classroom, attendance follow-up, such as phone calls home every time a student is absent, Lexia tracking, skill-centered interventions, student empowerment, intentional student talk, and again, handing off the responsibility to the students. You'll see this graph is showing us Lexia units gained by grade or week and the 3 weeks we've been tracking. And a unit is, for every 10 minutes on Lexia, a student can earn 2 units. And originally, Lexia is telling us that our students should be on it 135 minutes a week. And as we've crunched numbers, it would actually interfere with the human teaching of our students. And looking at what Lexia requires, we did come up with, we want 60 minutes, at least minimum of 60 minutes a week on Lexia would definitely be very achievable, which comes out to be students should be achieving 12 units a week on Lexia. And here you can see this is just the total number of in 6th grade, how from the beginning to the 17th, how much it has increased as we're starting to really push the importance of this and really hold students and teachers accountable for making sure everybody is using this during study hall, or if they finish a lesson in class and then there's time, they can be on this. 7th grade, we see not as big a jump, but still a definite improvement. 8th grade, we saw a dip. So this is something we want to dive into to see why we're less students on it, why we're less minutes. And then overall, you could see we jumped from 167 minutes per week, units per week, and until just the week before last, where we jumped all the way to 343 units. So we really are pushing this, and a student can rush through something, but if they rush through it, they will not be gaining units. So while gaining units is really important, we really want the kids to actually be doing the lessons and gaining something from this. The point is for them to learn or to practice skills through this, not just to rush through so that we can make pretty charts. This is our ELA data tracker. So this is the tracker we're using. You'll see in the first column, it says map growth instructional area. So on our NWEA, our benchmark assessment system, it does tell us in all the different areas how a student scored. And we took the lowest scoring area, and then it actually tells us what skill or topic the student needs the most support on. So for example, this first student, vocabulary is the area that they need the most help with, and figurative language is the actual skill or topic. So when the tutors or the teachers are working with the students, it's not on classwork, rather it's on these very specific areas. We felt that just saying they need help in ELA is too big and not achievable, because that doesn't give us information. Whereas the very specific instructional area and targeted skill gives us really specific information to go by. And then there is the Lexia units gained. So every week we're tracking how many units the students have gained. Formative assessments are things that happen in the classroom. It could be an exit ticket. It could be if they were working on something specific like vocabulary work or vocabulary in RTI. Those are types of, if there's a quiz, that's a formative assessment that we'll take the information from on a weekly basis. And then we felt it was really important to include their weekly attendance. So we can see, are they here every day and achieving, or maybe still struggling, or is absenteeism another factor in maybe why they're performing the way they do? And then we have met or not met, and then it's yes or no. If the whole page fit on there, you'd see there are some kids that did meet. So this is what the ELA data tracker looks like. And again, this is what we're using every week. The tutor is the one that is filling out the formative assessments or the exit tickets, and the teachers are the ones who will go through the Lexia units to determine, to fill out this chart. This chart is created, you can't see because we blocked out the names, it's broken down by cohorts. So every teacher knows exactly which of their students are identified to be part of that extra support. And then they're color coded to show what is the level we are trying to push them up to. The second priority we chose was for math. And much of the priority steps are very similar to what we had determined for ELA. We've determined students who are closest to moving up a band. The tutor works with these identified students during study hall. These students work on Dreambox. It will be monitored. Chromebooks, again, are available to take home for additional Dreambox usage. Data will be tracked on our math data tracker. And again, instructional strategies such as checking for understanding, intentional student talk, student collaboration will all be reviewed and expected to be observed when we do our walkthroughs. The tools are during and after school tutoring, Dreambox, Chromebooks to take home, tracking of Dreambox, and Dreambox data and specific skill information. Again, very targeted PDs to make sure the teachers have the strategies they need to have quality instruction, small group instruction, attendance follow-up, Dreambox tracking, skill-centered intervention, student empowerment, intentional student talk, checking for understanding, lesson studies, and we recently also just had a collab day, which is where Katie comes and we worked with our math teachers. We gave them subs for the whole day so they can focus on nothing but the collab day. And through there, we went through a lesson study, breaking up a lesson into various parts to see how can we incorporate like the small group instruction or the intentional student talk. And it was really great being able to have that time to really dig deeper into a math lesson. This is Dreambox lessons completed by our identified students. So you could see our 6th graders, 7th, 8th, and total. And with Dreambox, the reason why we do see some dips, to be really honest, is students were really rushing through these. And we'd see students that had like 43 or 50 lessons completed. However, their progress was 0 because they were rushing through. And so while we do track the lessons completed, we really are looking at the progress. What percentage to goal are these students? Because just following the lessons isn't giving us the information as to what we can expect the students will, how we expect them to perform on the state tests in the spring. Again, this is an example of our data tracker. So we use the progress report from Dreambox to determine is the student on track to meet year-end goals, the percentages of progress. So this is what's really important as to where they are, how they performed on their formative assessments, how they've performed on their RTI exit tickets, and again, that weekly attendance. And then to determine if they are meeting it or not, we really look at how they're doing on their formative assessments and their Dreambox usage. If it's under like 20%, we really are thinking, well, then they're really not on track to meet the standard at this time. So we really factor in Dreambox progress with formative assessments. The RTI exit tickets, what we learned from this was when a student is an RTI, they're able to complete the exit ticket. If they get a certain amount wrong, they work with the teacher and then they can retake this. So these scores are actually showing us the second test when they all, after working with the teacher, But starting next week or this week, we're really going to focus on what was the score before they were working with the teacher to give us an idea of the effectiveness of RTI, but also a more realistic data than right after they worked with the teacher and then took the quiz. This is on NWEA. It does give us predictions as to how our students will perform in the spring. So while we've only been doing this for a couple weeks, and as we all know, change is slow. It doesn't happen overnight, but I found this really pretty amazing to see just from February 12th to February 19th, how many of our students, this top one is we had insufficient data to make a prediction. So even seeing how much smaller that purple one is, it's showing us that our emphasis on this is having positive results. And now the orange, it does mean not on track, but now we can start building on that. And there is slight improvement between the met and the exceeding expectations. So we're really focused on this orange area. But again, we're seeing, even since the beginning of the year, we've seen great progress in that. So we're hoping to move this along so that our students really can move to that potentially and definitely on track. The priority steps for reclassification are we using Summit K-12 to prepare students for the LPAC, Lexia English for all English learners, which is different than the other Lexia program, specific learning facilitator who is assigned to our EL cohort, so she follows them around to help with translation, academic language used in every class, and newcomers will be taken out of ELA classes for the last 25 minutes for additional ELD instruction. And again, the tools here are dedicated ELD time, a dedicated facilitator, Lexia English and Summit K-12, small group instruction with the interventionist, and tracking K-12 progress are ways that we hope to really move these kids to reclassification. This is a chart from Lexia English just to show you the kids who were on it and how many minutes they've averaged on it. We are now also really focusing on Summit K-12. And again, that is because Summit K-12 helps prepare kids for the LPAC to reclassify them and it gives them questions very similar to what they would be experiencing when they take the LPAC, which does start on March 20th for us. And then progress monitoring on our identified kids during the weekly PLCs. The PLC will review weekly data. They'll review the process, where the process is occurring, and what are we doing right. If a student is not making progress, we review what supports are in place. We dig deeper into the targeted area of progress. At what level are they successful, and then start from there and build up on that. We observe the class, the student, and the tutor. We determine if missing skills are foundational or current content. We adjust lessons when needed. We adjust small group instruction, their fluid groups, and we demystify data. Teachers have to be comfortable with their data, even if the data is bleak or not what we want. We have to really understand it and own it, because at the end of the day, it is our data. For the identified students, they have dedicated tutors, targeted lessons, progress tracking, weekly communication to parents. So we have let all parents know, if those parents who have students who have been identified for this push, all parents have been notified of that and offered Chromebooks. We send home Chromebooks when needed, and we meet students individually weekly to show them their progress. So we do actually show them the progress tracker, so they are very aware of where they're at. And then what we do every day for every class is daily observations. It's academic vocabulary and use, sentence frames and starters. They need to be visible and referenced. Instructional strategies need to be used, and the dragon code is used when negative behaviors arise. Attendance calls are made every day by 10 a.m. and logs of this communication is kept in PowerSchool. So before I get to questions, I do want to show you the last frame of this. Oh, it's hard to read on this. I have attached the corresponding documents. So our 22-23 school improvement plan is available if you'd like to read it here, as well as our 4-month plan, which has been developed out of, taken from the school improvement plan. Okay, questions?
Just one, the skill-centered intervention you speak of, is that instruction done by the tutors only, or is that in SGI cases as well? I mean, are you dealing with the skill-centered intervention through the SGI and through the tutor after school, or are they segregated somehow?
After school tutoring is more foundational. So it really is trying to fill in whatever may have been missed, like due to pandemic or due to whatever reason it is. Whereas the in-school tutoring is very skill specific.
Okay. And is there, now say you have a group that needs figurative language or point of view. Are they grouped across grade levels, or are they more grade level specific? Can you work on the skills across grade levels where you can get a larger group that are sort of operating within the same performance band? Or I guess my question is, do we have enough tutors to deal with it?
Because the tutoring is taking place during study hall, the grade levels are kind of grouped together for the study hall. So 8th grade all has study hall at about the same time. So then she could pull all of them at once for that. So it really depends on the study hall schedule, because we don't want the students missing out on anything else to be pulled for tutoring. We really want to make sure that it's occurring in a time where no new learning is happening.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
On the Lexia and the Dreambox, it shows how much they did complete. Do you also have data on how, are you meeting the 12 units a week for Lexia? Are you meeting the lesson per week, whatever the Dreambox is, the percentage?
So with the Lexia units on our data tracker, it shows us how many units they gained this week. So we can see from the screenshot I have here, nobody came close to their 12 units. So here we can say, no, they were not meeting it. And then for Lexia, for Dreambox, it's showing us just the total percentage. It's not showing us how much we gained from week to week, but it is showing us their total at this point.
So if students aren't meeting the weekly Lexia target, is there an adjustment to the plan in place?
We are not able to Lexia, which is why we just did it through, I did it through our own. While it says a certain amount of units, I'm looking for 12. What it does tell me is, are these students are given enough time during study hall or during other times where they are able to be working on this. So it's telling me that they're not working on it as much as they should. And to be honest, we have something that allows teachers as well as myself to see. We have Go Guardian. So at any given time, I can go online, or the teachers can, and we see every student in that class. We see their screen. And so there will be times that either I will or the teacher will go ahead, and if they're like on YouTube where they're not supposed to be, close that screen and go ahead and chat to the students saying, hey, I need you on Dreambox instead, or I need you on Lexia. And it's, it's a little bit humorous when the kids are like, hey, who is this? It's like, hey, it's Dr. T, and I'm telling you, I'm looking at your data. You only have 2 Lexia units. I need you to improve upon that. So there are things where I really am expecting us to start seeing a much greater gain in units. And these are things that teachers as well are understanding that we definitely do have more control than we give ourselves credit for on making sure students are on target, which will then help them gain academic achievement.
Thank you. Other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll move to item C, the LCAP mid-year update with Katie Frager.
Oh.
Julie, would you mind stopping for that?
Oh, yeah. Let me go
Thank you. Okay. Hi, everyone. I hope you can see it. Looks like you can. Welcome to the 2022-23 LCAP mid-year update, our local control and accountability plan update. We're in the second year of a cycle. And I'm just going to start by saying that the mid-year LCAP report is actually not a requirement right now. It's in talks to be, but it's not a requirement as it was last year to have that update provided. But we want to provide it as a part of our process now on a yearly basis, regardless, and provide an update specifically. This one's going to be on the actions and the metrics of the LCAP as they're applicable right now. Some things are not applicable until the springtime. A financial update on the LCAP will be provided at a later time. So some of those actions that we look at are tied directly to funding, and we'll talk about where that's at later. Each of our schools' LCAPs have 4 goals with similar actions and metrics. The first one being a focus on improvement in academic outcomes for our students and our significant student groups. Goal 2 being, do our schools have the appropriate conditions for learning that will support improvement in those outcomes. 3 being around the school climate, thinking about how students feel, how families feel on campus. And then goal 4 being family engagement. As we know, that's one of the biggest factors that will help support improvement in student learning outcomes. So essentially, goals 2, 3, and 4 are all in service of our big goal 1. The way I've broken this down, rather than having you read an entire LCAP, is I've gone through and done the metric summary for each goal with support from other sites and from other members of the home office. And so I'll go through those just at a high point, but when we come to any questions, we can go back into them. So for goal 1, a lot of our metrics are really based on student outcomes on assessments. You'll see that there's new placements. The dashboard is a little newer and it's updated now. I will say that just as an update, it's not in here, but ICMS has exited CSI status as of 2022 and moved into ATSI. We've also seen, even though the dashboard does not have EL reclassification rates yet, internally we've been keeping metrics, so we have those. We also have seen that our English learners making progress towards proficiency has actually been one of the higher things that we have in terms of our statuses, so they've all remained at medium. And then you'll notice that specifically our benchmark information, we base it on the spring data, but I did include, and I'll just briefly touch on it at the end after we go through a summary, some update documents about some of our math, our math and our ELA summary growth reports, just to see what those look like at a high level for all of our grade levels. When we look at goal 2, these are ensuring that every school has the appropriate conditions for our learning to occur. So we're looking at teacher credentialing, our students having access to standards aligned materials. Specifically, we think about all students, but also specifically now about our English learners. We're looking at our facilities and professional learning. So we had those wonderful Williams inspections and all had good. So congratulations to all of those. We're moving on to goal 3. This is specifically around the work on school climate. The top is around our suspension rates. It's broken down by student groups. This is reflecting on last year's data. So anything that's based on the dashboard is based on last year's data. You'll also see so far, it says average so far for ODRs. keeping in mind that we're at this point in the school year. We also are going to wait and see some of those we have 0% expulsion rates, but then you're going to see that we're going to wait on survey results until the spring, because we typically get our family, staff, and student results in the springtime. For our last goal, very similar. This is based on family surveys, trying to not bombard them with too much. I think this is one of our areas of our LCAP that we can boost a little bit for next year. But we also focus on looking at ADA in relation to family engagement and percentage of family participation in school events. It's looking really good so far. We've had a lot more school events. I know there's been school event calendars this year, and they're back in person. So we're seeing higher levels of participation this year. I'm not going to go into every single action, but these are the actions that are related to the goals that were planned in June when the LCAP was approved. For the most part, you'll see a little update about what it actually was for. Did we purchase these things? The actual funding we'll talk about later. I'm going to just quickly go to this summary here that gives a high level of the different updates. So our partnership with Sparks Academic Center Tutoring, it will be added as an actual expenditure for this school year. It's one of the major differences in what funding was used for. The parent liaison role is now the family engagement specialist, so that'll also be updated since that's a key role in thinking about family engagement. Our solution tree partnership was a little less consistent this year, with some of those additional funds being used for partnering with Sparks and other educational consultants that are listed. And then some key LCAP actions also include ensuring positions like our classroom teachers, our site administrators, and classified staff in varying roles. And just depending on those roles, whether that's school counselors, our psychologists, et cetera, depends on what goal they're related to or aligned to. So these have remained the same and will continue to support all of our goals. Generally, just the ability to look at our LCAP mid-year is a really great way for us to monitor some of these metrics and actions and think about what we want to reconsider as we go into next year and what feedback we need from stakeholders. And then, as noted, some of those financial implications will come a little bit later. I want to just quickly note, typically if everything's in service of our student outcomes, we've had some successful growth, and this is before some of the work on the 4-month plans was more substantial. And so you'll notice that just quickly when you start to see some of these, and I know that this was in the actual board packet, hold on, I'll get a little closer for you. What we're really looking for, and this is the set of data that the state LAUSD look at in terms of verified data, this specific report itself, we're looking at hoping that that bar is growing. So you want to see it going higher than 0, not negative. And then I'm hoping that it meets or exceeds that diamond, which is the grade level norm. Any students that take this assessment, this is at that grade level, that would be what we would hope that they would have, or that's that grade level norm for projected growth. So you can see that right now we're looking at box specifically, but I'm just going to go through each one just so you can see some of that. I typically am looking for those bars to hit the diamonds, so to speak. So you can see at Barack Obama Charter School, they had quite a bit of growth and are meeting or exceeding projected growth. I know Dr. T mentioned it, but they're seeing evidence of growth as well, and thinking about where are some of those areas and which grade levels might need additional support. You can also see that for reading, surpassing the projected growth in winter. Quickly going to go look at ICS. So we're seeing some needs in the lower elementary grades and some in the middle. And then at Clarion, we are also seeing some larger growth. And this is specific to look at because while we may have lower achievement, we're seeing some higher growth projection or observed growth than we have in the past. And typically around the winter time, we actually, and this data point will come in a little later and I'll share it. Typically around this time, we have a dip, or it's in the past, our fall to winter results have not had as positive of growth as we would like. So it's trending in a positive way, and I can share that data if anyone would like it. So that is.
When was the winter assessment given?
It was given mid-February, beginning to mid-February, yeah. So this month, actually.
We closed it.
So
about
that's
a week
really
ago.
new data.
Yes, this is brand new data.
What questions do we have for Katie?
I don't have any.
Thank you for the updates. It's good to see where we're aiming with the 5x5 grids as well. And I know those will be back next year because we'll finally have
Two
all
data
the
points.
data. And so it's nice to get back focused on that and connect what Dr. Triletti was sharing with what we're doing overall.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item D, the board update on the superintendent search. We realized we shared at the very end of the meeting, and so wanted to make sure all stakeholders got an overview of next steps in our superintendent search process. So we are engaging with a search firm to help us really match the needs of Ingenium schools with strong candidates who will support the current success of the organization and then kind of take us into that next level. And so that firm will do search and sourcing and will provide connections to candidates and then move into the actual process that will be a collaboration between the board and staff, with Melody Donnelly, our director of HR, being our partner in that work. We'll facilitate stakeholder interviews, stakeholder input through with students, parents, staff, actually meeting with our candidates and providing feedback to the board. Those stakeholder groups, Melody has led similar processes in the past for site leaders. So this will be a little different because it'll be overall for the organization, but she'll guide them through a process to determine the qualities, characteristics that they're looking for in our executive leader, develop interview questions, and then have that opportunity to ask that of our candidates. All of that information, all of the input from these stakeholder groups will be provided to the board, and then the board will do final round interviews of our finalist candidates and make that selection. We anticipate at the next board meeting having a clearer timeline just with how the search and the sourcing process goes. At this point, we have quite a few stakeholders who are interested in those input meetings and in the interviews. So we've already done town halls, listening sessions at the schools, some one-on-one meetings that were requested. And if more stakeholders would like to be a part of that, more staff stakeholders, we can go back to our email with a sign-up link. I believe Jesse, Melody sent that out, correct? And then we will facilitate with our family engagement coordinators, getting our students and our parents involved at our sites. So that is our overarching process. Like we said, as we partner with our search firm a little bit more, we'll have a clearer timeline, but we are well into kind of the hiring season, and so we'll be moving forward. So I'll pause if board members have other questions or want to add any other information. Appreciating everyone's input and collaboration as we move forward, and a big thank you to Melody, who's been already supporting this and your time and expertise. With that, we will move to item E, the Prop 39 preliminary offers with Arlita Albaran. Always fun, Prop 39.
Hello, so I'm going to be giving a brief overview of our preliminary offers. So I'm going to start off with our Compton schools. We went with an alternative agreement for both Box and Clarion. We have the same exact space that we currently have this year for next year, exclusive space for Box and also for Clarion Charter Middle School. No changes there. So we have the same location at Vanguard Learning Center, both alternative agreements for Clarion and for Box. No significant changes, shared space, and continued use of the nursing space and offices. For LUSD, Prop 39 preliminary offers. For ICS, we were offered 15 teaching stations, 3 sped spaces, and 1 admin space. For ICMS, 6 teaching spaces, 2 sped spaces, and 1 admin space. The differences between this year and for next year, for ICS, the preliminary offer is 1 less teaching station and 1 more sped space offered than this year. For ICMS, it is 2 less teaching stations than this year, but 1 more sped space. And we are maintaining our current locations for both our co-located charters. Okay, the impact for ICMS and ICS, we have less exposure for overall location for our 2023-24 school year, and for box and carry-on, no room or space additions. Okay, questions?
At the Vanguard site, do we have a sense, are the other, we still have 1 Green Dot school, are they staying in that facility as well?
We haven't heard that they're leaving or
We
anything.
don't, okay,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
or we don't have an indication
Yeah.
they're leaving, got it. Other questions?
Not at this time.
And we're not concerned about the lower number of teaching stations, we can still accommodate all of our.
There might be a concern for ICMS.
Okay. Will we do like a rotating teacher or try to get more space?
Probably try to get more space.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. All right, we'll move on to item 4, items scheduled for consent. Do we have a motion for our consent calendar?
I move to approve all the consent items.
I second.
Please take the roll.
Hamilton,
Yes?
Ali,
Yes.
Way,
Yes.
Flood,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move on to items for discussion and action, beginning with the approval of audit provider. Do you have comments?
Yep. After our RFP process this year, we received proposals from 3 different audit firms. One, we just received a quote. We've decided to, I'll be recommending Trustee White's firm. This is going in a different direction than we've gone in the past with our previous audit firm. And based on the review of all of the proposals, including cost, the Trustee White's firm proved to be the best candidate moving forward. So,
Questions about the recommendation or the proposal? All right. Do we have a motion to approve Trustee White as our audit provider?
I move to approve Trustee White as our new auditor.
I second.
Please take the roll.
Hamilton,
Yes?
Ali,
Yes.
Way,
Yes.
Flood,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 5B. Normally we'd be taking a look at and approving a board meeting calendar, but we wanted the chance, because we have some new board members, to discuss and talk about our board meeting schedule, especially as we move from the pandemic and back and moved back to in-person meetings, and wanted to hear, I guess, ideas about time, day, anything that you might work better for work, personal schedules. I'd love to hear some input and suggestions from board members.
As an accountant, the first 2.5 weeks of the month are not good for me.
So meeting the 3rd or the 4th
Correct.
Great. I don't see an issue with accommodating that at all.
And 5 or 5:30 meetings are good as well. So
Wallace, what timing, given your work schedule?
So for my new, by the way, for those who do not know, I may start a new job starting in July. So in a school setting, I assume probably it's 8 to 4:30 or 8 to 5. So it might be from time to time I may still instead of attending in person, I may still need to call in remotely if it starts at 5. So if it starts at 5:30, I think it's more likely for me to attend in person. But let's say, the workplace is in Studio City. So if it's in the Valley, probably I can get there in half an hour. But it's at Fox, it might take me 1 hour for commute. So 5:30 might work slightly better.
Aaron and Nadar, what thoughts about timing do you all have?
I'm now on an East Coast schedule, so 5 p.m. your time PST works for me with being on Eastern time. Mondays still work.
And because of Wallace's situation, I have no problem with starting at 5:30 as well. Nothing later than that, because I'd prefer to roll from my role ending at 4:30, 4:45 at my regular job right into this. It helps that I don't have a whole lot of dead time in between. So that'll be good.
I might propose, considering our bi-coastal nature now, that we do a 5:30 start, but really task staff and ourselves with really monitoring our agendas and really trying to not go past an hour and a half might be really our target. So even with a little bit later start, trying to balance those so we don't push you too late, Aaron, but that we can maximize folks able to get in person as much as possible. Would that be amenable to the group?
Yes.
Okay. And then I'm hearing Mondays still are fine. Third or fourth Monday, we can kind of look at the calendar and how those fall.
Yep.
And what we'll do also, and I can reach out so that folks can look at their schedule and think about this as well, is what we did pre-pandemic is we tried to, as much as possible, set up opportunities for board members when it worked with schedules to visit schools and get that sense of the programming on the ground, work with students. And so we can take a look and see how it might work to do some site visits that work with, again, people's work and personal schedules, so that as we're making decisions, as we're hearing from staff, we have a good sense of the work that's happening. So look out for an email. I'll send some more information and that you all can take a look at, and take a look at your calendars, and then we can kind of start to put together that visit schedule. Any other comments or questions about our calendar? I appreciate the input and everyone compromising. Look forward to some efficient meetings and starting a little later so that we can get folks in person. So thank you all. We will move into closed session. We're going to closed session for public employee performance evaluation. For the superintendent, we will enter closed session at 6 p.m. and go ahead and meet us on the other link.
It's muted.
Welcome back. The board is returning to open session. While in closed session, the board voted 5 yeses to accept Jake Rogers' letter of resignation. And that is all the action that was taken. We will move to item 8, our meeting evaluation and planning for next meeting. We've already talked about our time change for next school year, correct? But we will be remaining at 5 p.m. for this year.
We can do whatever the board would like to do. If we want to amend it, we can amend it at the next board meeting.
I think we'll keep it for now as it's been in the calendar, and then shift unless any other input. Okay. Any feedback on tonight's meeting? I think just an appreciation for the detailed reports and plans, LCAP, ICMS, recommendations about auditors, Prop 39, all of the updates. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
I motion.
A second.
Please take the roll.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Ali?
Yes.
Wade?
Yes.
Flood?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Our meeting is adjourned at 6:17 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night, and we'll see you next month.
Bye, guys.
Hi.
Bye. Thank you.